My name is Kairie Pierce. I'm the Workforce Development Director with the Washington State Labor Council AFL-CIO, and I'll be your moderator. And I have...
I'm Bridget Quinn with NECA-IBEW Electrical Training Center in Portland, Oregon.
Hi, Roxana Amaral with the Northwest Carpenters Institute.
Licea with the Northwest Labor's Apprenticeship Program.
All right, thank you very much. So we have a small group, but just sort of like get an idea of who the folks are in the audience. So the folks that are with apprenticeship programs themselves, coordinators, all right? All right, so we have some LNI folks. You? Is there anybody else?
I'm from Bowie.
Okay. Like workforce development councils, K-12, community college. All right, and okay, cool. All right, I'm going to start off with the first question. Louise and I got on a conference call and we decided that I would ask the question and each one of them would answer the same question. To try to sort of move it around a bit, I'll have different people start that question. So let's start with Louis.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so what are some best practices for recruitment and retention, especially for women and people of color?
So that is a good one. You know, as a coordinator for my program, I've been doing it for 5 years, and sometimes you look at programs that you have out there, and sometimes you say, how can I get somebody of, a color? How can I not get somebody who's a female in my program? As a coordinator, what I've done, I have extended that extra, attention. Hey, you want to come to my program? I mean, as I go out there, walk through the neighborhoods, I see people out there in the grocery stores, people at Home Depot of color, females, say, hey, you're here shopping for a grocery, you're shopping for tools at Walmart, or shopping for tools at Home Depot. Have you ever considered going to the programs, these trades? And you'd be surprised how many times they say, wow, what is this? Can you tell me more about these programs? Mm-hmm. We have always, we have not reached to the people of color, minorities, mm-hmm. because of the old school mentality. And I think that's changing, and it's changing. But sometimes as a program coordinator, we need to make that extra effort to make sure we get them on board, because you'd be surprised that by just taking one individual, somebody earlier said, if you take that one extra female into your classes, mm-hmm. you'd be surprised what that does for you. So by taking just one person, I've taken 2 guys 3 years ago, Marshallese. There's a heavy community of Marshallese people in Spokane. Mm-hmm. You'd be surprised how many people we have right now, because everybody knows this, that everybody that comes into your programs are people that have heard it from somebody else, either your neighbor, your father, your uncle. So how's that going to happen if you don't let those people in? You don't let the other, genders coming in.
Mm-hmm. So you just go shopping and you go shopping for...
Well, no, but I never stop working,
Yeah,
I'm always trying to recruit people. So what do? You have to go. I go to churches,
yep.
Where you have, people of different ethnicities, and that's where I say, hey, this is what I do. I have put tables outside, just something out of the ordinary, out of the box. We're always going to schools, we're always going to high schools, colleges, man show events, all this stuff. Well, what about, a craft show where there's a lot of females involved?
Yeah.
I'm there.
Awesome.
And that's been helping
like
our program.
I'm sorry, can you scoot down? I'm so distracted by that icon on your face.
I mean, I can show you some numbers. So right now, currently in our program, we have 1,191 apprentices registered in Washington State. Out of that, we have 107 African Americans. We have 22 Asians. We have 620 Caucasians, 120 Hispanics, 45 Natives, 22 others, 36 Pacific Islanders. And that's just males right there. African American females, 17, Asian 3, Caucasians 103, Hispanic 17, Native African 7, and others 3. So it does pay off to go to those events, like I said, craft shows in places where you don't find your average person that we're looking for. It does help.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, those craft shows, man, they pull some stuff together.
Yes.
Roxana.
So when it comes to recruiting and retaining people of color and women, one of the biggest things that we have to look at is looking at our data and identifying what are the factors, what are the barriers that are not allowing us to either recruit or retain people of color and women. Identifying those barriers, and then also working with our community partners. Working with community partners, that's one of the places that we have really succeeded with the Northwest Carpenters Institute, and establishing those partnerships where primarily people of color or women are often feeling like they are not included. And so establishing those relationships with those community partners where they have the trust and they see that we're working closely with them and providing them opportunities really opens up the door and really begins to get our name out into the communities that we really want to reach out to. I think about internally when it comes to our organizations, and this is across all education organizations, whether we're talking about kindergarten, preschool, all the way to college and apprenticeships. There are many systemic things that we do that prohibit us from even allowing some of our women and people of color to come in. And some of those is that old school mentality, but some of it is just in our systems, in our hiring practices, for example. There's a big area of focus across all education, right? If people don't see people who look like them work in the schools where they are wanting to get an education, they're not going to participate in that, right? You want to make sure that you are representative of what the community is. And looking at your hiring practices, looking at your admin practices, all of those factors is a huge step in identifying how you can eliminate some of those barriers. I also think about schools, K through 12. There is a stigma for our apprenticeships, right, currently, is, oh, that's not for me, right? Oh, I can't do that. I don't have that opportunity. It may not even be presented. And so going into the schools and strategically looking at what schools are in the communities that we're building. How do we work with those families to let them know, hey, we're here, we're carpenters, and we want to help build and grow this community. And oftentimes, when we don't step into the communities and actually take the time, again, that trust is broken and we don't have that opportunity to really help and be seen as an opportunity for women and people of color. The other factor that I think is really important to look at if your organizations already do not have our pre-apprenticeship programs, and strategically preparing non-regular or non-traditional is the term I hear, the non-traditional apprentices or people coming into our programs. How do we ensure that we are preparing them so when they go through our admissions process, so when they go through the program, they're feeling confident and they're feeling prepared. Currently, we have begun doing a pre-apprenticeship program and we're now state recognized. And we are focusing on several of our non-traditional demographics and working with community partners, reaching out, finding potential candidates for those programs to ensure that we are providing this opportunity and being inclusive for everyone.
Bridget?
Okay.
Do we repeat the question?
Sure,
All right.
maybe for the newcomer.
All right, so the question is, what are some best practices for recruitment and retention, especially for women and people of color?
Okay, sure. I think that Roxanne hit on it a little bit as far as our standards go. So one of the things that we took a look at were our apprenticeship standards and taking a look at how we could maybe open the door a little bit wider for non-represented or underrepresented people. And so we started utilizing the exception that any individual who completed a pre-apprenticeship program, which largely are communities of color or women, the folks that are being served by those, that they can apply outside of a public application opening, which has helped us dramatically because a lot of these pre-apprenticeship programs, they graduate and then they have to wait 3, 4, 5 months for us to open up for applications, and by then a lot of their steam has kind of died down a little bit and they're dry, or maybe we lose them to another industry. So this allows them to just jump right in apply for the apprenticeship, get interviewed. So that's one big thing that we've done as far as something that's very possible and I won't say simple because I'm not the one that had to do all the paperwork. For me, it was simple. But it is something that can definitely be done. Another thing that we have done is really target our ads, our advertising, featuring folks in our industry that represent underrepresented populations and telling their story. So explaining how apprenticeship has changed their lives, how they got into it, what they were doing before, and what they like about it and enjoy about it. So just getting those faces out that, if you can see it, you can be it sort of thing. I remember when I was working once at a huge athletic club in Portland, and I was standing on a ladder, and this little girl just looked up at me and she said, "Are you an electrician?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "That is so cool." I mean, she was like this high. So I think that gave me goosebumps, and it still does to this day. And so that's really one of the biggest reasons why I really focus on putting those images out so people can see it and believe that they can become it. Another thing I actually did one last night are these outreach events. These workshops. They're 2 hours. Last night I did one at Oregon Tradeswomen's Training Center, and had 40 women register, and I think probably about 30 showed up. So it was the best turnout I've had yet. And it's just an hour where we wire an electrical circuit, and there's other women electricians that are helping me, so they get to hear their stories, and then an hour of just information. How do you become an electrical apprentice, and what are the realities of working as a female in a male-dominated field? Partnerships with pre-apprenticeship programs and community organizations are priceless. Like Roxanne said, you need to have that trust within the communities and really show that you're making an effort and that you're welcoming people. You want to really welcome folks, which leads me to my next step is any person of color or woman who applies to our apprenticeship program hears from me. So I send out tips on what they can do to pass our aptitude test, so some resources for studying for the aptitude test, which is part of our application process, and then interview tips. And if they don't make the cut, I direct them towards, we have groups like the Electrical Workers Minority Caucus and Renew, which is kind of our youth, young workers group. And they are great. I partner with them all the time. They do mock interviews for folks. They help people build their resume. They help just kind of get them feeling like they're part of the family already, even though they're not yet in the apprenticeship program. And I think that really builds their confidence. And a lot of folks, I think, when they apply, don't get in right away. They just go and do something else. But this helps give them some staying power. And then the last thing is for retention, which is, so important. A lot of people talk about recruitment, but retention is where it's really at. Because when you don't feel comfortable on a job site, you're likely not going to want to wake up every day for 30 years, and go do that till you retire. So retention's huge, and so I do a lot of fostering leadership and giving apprentices scholarships to go to leadership development courses, conferences, conventions, things like that.
So does anybody have anything to add to that best practice before I go on to the next question? All right. Okay, so we'll start with Bridget this time. What are some best practices for outreach to the younger populations? You touched on it a little bit. But.
Sure, yeah, make it fun. Make it fun. Don't talk about, even though we stress math so much, I try not to talk about it too much. Instead, I try to kind of show them how to do something and say, hey, you just use trigonometry to bend that conduit, because I think that's a big, oh, wait, math breaks. I'm not listening anymore. So make it fun. I partner with a lot of high schools where they'll bring their kids in for I just did one last week. They were in our training center for 2 full days, wiring electrical circuits with me. And just having a kind of fun, positive attitude with them. I really tried not to harp on them too much as far as some of the disciplinary stuff, mainly because I know a lot of these kids maybe slept in their cars last night, or they have issues that I don't even understand. So I try to let those things slide and not be the authority. When I first started my position, I really was, put your cell phone away, and if you don't want to be here, then, fine, go sit in the corner and play on your phone, and I don't do that anymore. I learned that that's like the number one way to shut kids down and to make them not want to listen to you. So, it's just hands-on activities is the best thing you could do, I think, to get kids interested.
The earlier of exposing children or young people, the better and more likely of a chance they're going to be able to benefit or even know about the opportunity. The K through 12 system right now, there's this big push, right? College, 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 and apprenticeships have kind of been moved out of or pushed away, right? And really, we are college. A lot of us are connected with the technical colleges, and our apprentices are actually receiving college credit. Our program, you go through the 4-year program, and after those 4 years or during those 4 years, you're able to actually take 4 more additional classes through Renton Technical College, and you graduate with an associate's degree. One of the things that we have really focused on too is when we're outreaching to young people is showing them, giving them a glimpse of what they can be and who they are. And this picture to me is really powerful. This is our apprentices this last year. Over 80 apprentices participated in the Renton Technical College graduation. And they got to wear their hard hats instead of mortarboards. And it was such a cool, powerful experience to be a part of that. But also, this is a real big opportunity for parents to know. These are the opportunities. Not only are you getting a living wage, not only are you getting benefits, all of those other things, but your kid is getting an education. And that is one of the most important things for parents, is an education. And apprenticeship is one of the most powerful tools, especially when you're coming, when you're, for myself, coming from underrepresented communities, right? For me, I'm not a carpenter by trade, but I say I'm a carpenter at heart. And the reason why I say that is because carpenters have been able to take care of my family and have been able to take care of my communities. And I have a lot of pride in being part of the carpenters. And the other part too is really expanding our pathway. Right now, a lot of our main focus is in the high schools. High school, high school, high school. Colleges, they have what's called a kinder to college pathway, meaning they are actually taking kids kindergarten and their parents. That's a key component. It's not just the kids. You have to connect with the parents. They are taking them in kindergarten to colleges already. We need to do something like that, right? To really show them, hey, this is an opportunity. Let's get those hands-on activities. We do kids builds every month at either our, at our Northwest camp facility, but we also do some in other areas of the state. And parents are always there, and they're engaged, and they love it, and they're like, wow, this is such a great opportunity. I had no idea about this. And so one of the things that we're doing is we are actually reaching out to the middle schools and working with the middle schools and working in their after-school programs. There's millions and millions of dollars of funding in after-school programs where we can provide mentorship and provide these hands-on activities that really engage students and really will help in retention of high school graduation and then also into our apprenticeship programs. I think about one of the things that we have been really working on in the apprenticeship is the mentoring aspect and how do we utilize our apprentices. We have an Apprenticers Ambassador program that our apprentices are actually going to the schools, going to the job fairs, utilizing social media and helping and promoting our apprenticeship. That's a big component as well. So in addition to the families, making sure that our apprentices are also reaching out and saying, hey, this is a valuable opportunity for you, and seeing themselves as leaders and mentors in the community and as carpenters. The last thing that I will say is another thing that we are that we have developed is a Career Connections curriculum, and that is curriculum that's primarily focused in the high schools, and they are all of our they are aligned. The curriculum is aligned with our standards and helps and promotes carpentry apprenticeships in the schools. And so several of our several of our schools in the area are really interested in what Career Connection can offer, and also it helps and connect our students to other programs like our pre-apprenticeships and other organizations that we're working closely with. One thing I'll add is Stanwood School District is actually utilizing the Career Corrections curriculum starting in the middle schools. And so their students are going to be utilizing that curriculum from 6th grade all the way to 12th grade, and then we're working directly with them to get into our apprenticeship programs.
Okay.
Nice. So you ladies got most of the stuff we're doing. The only thing that I can mention is extra on top of that. We have done what you guys mentioned. So in Spokane, the last 3 years, we've been getting together with the school district, and we have a 5th grade career exploration day where we get all the different occupations out there, anything that you can imagine, from electricians to lawyers, doctors, and we try to make it something where it's a hands-on activity, because they do like something where they can stay focused, something they can play touch with, and it becomes a fun interaction for them. And also what we've been doing in the evenings after school, we've been invited whenever we have our classes, we bring these 5th graders along with their parents, because you'd be surprised how many actual parents you can bring into your programs because they're looking for a job. And if we can capture the audience, we can capture the parents, buying into our programs, those kids will be the future programs, person in our programs. So that's what we've been doing the last couple of years. One thing that we do for hands-on activity, like I said, something that they can actually do as a craft professional labor. What we do, we bring concrete wherever we go to a school, at least in Eastern Washington, right? And I'll bring a roto hammer. Everybody who's around me probably hates me because it's very loud, but you'd be surprised how many kids like that station. Yeah. There's a line, you have the teachers and counselors saying, you got to move on, Timmy. And Timmy's like, I want to do this. So we have to capture their attention, right? Whatever we do in our profession, so we can capture that audience, because later on, those are the ones that are going to be signed up with us. But we have to stay focused with them, not only in 5th grade, we have to hit them up also in middle school and also in high school. So you have to maintain that contact, if not we'll lose them. What I've noticed, I've been a recruiter for 5 years, and I can tell you that in the 5 years that I've been going to multiple schools in Eastern Washington, I have captured no one immediately after high school into our program. Right. It's true facts. They've been coming when they're 29, 26, 30. So what's going on? I think it goes back to, it's an adequate educational system where we have been forcing folks into the 4-year career, and we've been forgetting about, hey, this is the original 4-year degree. It's just another option, correct? So I think we heard from Chris, the conversation's there, so it's going to start. So hopefully the focus will start moving things forward. So I think we have the same problem among all the trades. And one thing that is very important, I don't think that the construction trades should be forgotten. I know that right now the big conversation is all these other non-traditional occupations, but since the recession, April 2006 to January 2011, 40% of construction workers lost their job. That's about 2.8 million people that have not returned back to the trades. And we're talking about the Great Wave. That's people that are currently working. What happened to the 40% that never came back? It's a shortage. So that's something that we cannot forget, because we're going to be hurting. We're going to be screaming for people. So that's my suggestion. Just stay busy with the kids. Talk to them in elementary. That's where you got to start. Some people say that's way too early. It's not too early to start putting water in that seed. Exposure. Elementary, middle school, high school.
I actually had a counselor from a middle school who had taken a non-traditional path of going through an apprenticeship before they went back to school to be a counselor at a high school. And they called me reached out to me because they had started, their principal had implemented a Wear Your Colors Day, which meant that the high school teacher or middle school teachers would wear their college sweatshirts. And he said, can you get me some trades stuff to wear, so that, and if I could have an assortment, then I could just, every week I could wear something different, which I thought was really interesting and forward thinking as well. Sort of like if they see it, they'll believe it, right? So, all right.
In
So
that same vein too, like I go to a lot of high schools and career fairs and they always have the school pendants. We need an apprenticeship pendant.
Yeah.
Because they like line the walls of their libraries and classrooms with all these different colleges and universities, but there's no apprenticeship.
We did that with the trades in my region. We all pitched in and got trade pennants and then gave a set to, every 2 years we do an understanding and accessing union apprenticeships workshop for teachers and career counselors, and each person who came got a set of the pennants to hang in there. And I'm always hearing, I get phone calls every now and then, do you have any I can hang in my office?
Yeah.
So they're into them.
And were they felt or paper?
They're felt, yeah.
And do you sell those?
I currently am out of stock, but what I'm doing now is I have sets of trade posters that I send to career counselors so they can hang those in their offices, yeah.
Along those same lines, you know, for years, my whole life I've been seeing people with alumni bumper stickers, window clings, things like that. And, you know, I graduated my apprenticeship 15 years ago, and so I finally got the muster up, called my cause with PNCI down in Portland, and I'm going, why don't we have these for all of our graduates? I mean, we should be proud of graduating this trade school, and so we do. We have them now, and we're handing them out to all of our graduates as they go. So, yeah.
Yeah, we just
Well, I'm
made
proud.
hoodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
nice. All right, I think we have. Oh, go ahead.
Just real quick, I think one thing that apprenticeships can do to help get people out of the pre-apprenticeship programs, the high school programs, we have articulation agreements, and we reference them in our standards. And the trades are always hesitant to make a guarantee for those students. I've seen it, we've struggled with it in ours. For a time, we did have a articulation agreement that said, if you do this, this, and this, you shall receive direct entry into our apprenticeship program. And I think that means a lot. You know, we have a habit of saying, well, if you do this, this, and this, then you may get to come in. I think we need to put our money where our mouth is and say you will come in if you choose to.
One of the other things, when I started, you know, pitching career connections and starting to, you know, interact with CTE directors, I was generally pushed to the school board of directors. And oftentimes they're not trades folks. They have no idea about apprenticeship, and they're the same moms and dads that push their kids directly to college. We've made a concerted effort over, I'd say, the last 5 years to empower our folks, get them through training, and have them run for those offices.
Yeah.
So we do now have school board of directors members up and down the I-5 corridor, and from California to Washington, as far as I know.
Nice.
And we've had a lot of luck with changing policy within the schools once we get a board member in there that can speak the language and that they have the respect of that elected position.
Yeah, we've also been working with one of our carpenters, Dr. Kathy Swan. Dr. Kathy Swan, and she is aligning our career connection standards to the state standards. So then when we do work with the directors and OSPI to make sure that we say, hey, here's how our program is aligning directly to what your standards are in the schools. So that's something really exciting. We're looking forward to sharing that out soon.
Okay, I think I have time for one more question. So Roxanne, you can start, and then Bridget or Luce, you can decide who's going to go after her. You can dumb wrestle behind her back or something. So how is technology impacting your craft, and how can we better prepare the future workforce? I mean, we're just in a technology workshop before this one, and wow.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Actually, I get very, very excited when we talk about technology. I'm part of the education curriculum department, and a main focus that we are working on with our instructors and our staff is incorporating technology in the classroom and in our shops. And so I'm going to talk overall about technology in the trade, and then really focus on technology and training and how we can increase productivity and increase a more versatile and more productive apprentice in the field. So technology, as we know, is everywhere. It's growing rapidly, and it impacts every single career, trade, program out there. And so right now, one of the things that we're seeing is there is a lot of push for moving away from from paper prints, right? And really focusing on electronic blueprints. But not only just doing that, we actually have applications and software programs that run an entire company from start to finish. An example of this is Procore. Procore is a project management system that not only includes your prints, your RFIs, your submittals, your calendars, your schedules, your payroll, every single component of a job from start to finish, from your company. I mean, this is like really big, and when it comes to communication, this is one of the tools that's being utilized to increase efficiency and communication. And that's where we're really seeing it with the increasing efficiency and communication. And the other component that I think about when it comes to being out in the field and what we've seen with technology is safety, right? Safety is our most important element. We want to ensure that our carpenters are safe, and so utilizing technology to make sure that they're coming home at the end of the day is really important to us. Some of the technology that you think of are, your fall protection systems, right, and how those are being utilized. Also, there are apps, for example, that, you could even just take an iPad, put it right into an area, and it will actually identify things that could be hazards, right? And how to document that, and how to then distribute that information out within seconds to your crew, to your, project manager, to your foreman, whoever may need that information. And so that, to me, has been really exciting to see, and that our apprentices are sharing that these are some of the things that are going on. When it comes to some of the electronic print reading, it's still not very as common as we'd like to see it, but you do have job sites that utilize iPads, utilize what are called data vaults, where the workers can go ahead and identify and see the prints and the images that they are building at that moment. In training, we are utilizing an application called SketchUp. And SketchUp is, and I actually have some of the iPads have it, and I can pass them around, but SketchUp is a 3D model program where you can actually look at, yes, you can pass them around. Okay. There's a couple of things on there too, but a model where you could actually see the entire building, right? And this is really exciting for our apprentices, especially when we are getting ready to build in the shop. And they're able to, maybe they're new and they haven't really been able to understand and make the transition from a 2D print to the final product. Well, here it is. Here's the product. Here's what you're going to build. And you could actually, there's this layers component, for example, and you could actually go from layer to layer. You could do the foundation all the way up. And what we have been training our instructors on is utilizing this out in the shop. Here in this image here, you'll see that this is actually one of our wood framing projects that we utilize. And students are able to look at it, move it around, check it out before they go down to the shop, and then they have the data vault, which there's a picture of some of the workers in the field here, some carpenters in the field that are actually in front of the data vault, right out in an actual job site. And so this is all ways that can increase the learning and the development of how apprentices are able to really apply and see what they're doing, and then seeing that final product. So thank you for passing them around too, and sharing them.
I promise I'll get them back.
Oh yes. Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that we have incorporated in all of our training centers. We have iPads for every single student. We are offering technology courses, some technology basic courses, but also courses that are regarding applications that are used out in the field. And then the data vaults have also been something that we have really been focusing on in utilizing throughout our training centers to help our apprentices through training. And our instructors are utilizing these as well, and it's really changing the way that we are instructing and presenting information and sharing that information out with our students.
Nice, thank you.
Technology is having a huge impact in the requirements of apprenticeship to journeyman. So some of the requirements, I mean, it's becoming to the point that it's becoming a prerequisite sometimes, something we got to stay focused on. We don't want to have a digital literacy gap, and if we don't focus on what's happening right now with this digital world, we're going to have the digital gap like we had a literacy gap at one time. So we got to stay focused, because not only does it help you start the jobs faster on track, but all the tools that we're using out there, some of the stuff that we're tracking the tools, we know where they are, the digital lasers, drone imagery systems, all this stuff we need to start educating our people in our programs so they can actually operate these software programs, not necessarily develop them, but figure out how to grab one of these. I mean, how many people do we have in our trades, the journey person that still have a flip phone because they refuse to go to the cell phone, smartphone? We're going to have the digital gap if we don't stay focused on what's happening right now, because moving faster than we can actually train individuals.
Yeah, I mean, I think these two covered the bulk of it. We're doing a lot of the digital blueprints in our classrooms as well. I kind of laugh when I think our welding classroom was replaced by a computer lab, and in our welding lab, it now shares a space with a robot that our apprentices are now learning how to program robotics and programmable logic controllers. And so as technology increases, I wouldn't say it's necessarily pushing old technology out, but it's being prioritized at a much faster rate than I ever imagined. We still teach welding, but we can't ignore the importance of keeping our students aware of what's coming down the pipeline and making sure that they're skilled, so that when our contractors go out to bid work, they can do so competitively, knowing that they're going to have a workforce that's been trained and is able to use that new technology.
We're still moving along, so we got room for more questions. Okay, so Bridget, go ahead.
Well, you touched on welding, and it's kind of cool because one of the technologies that's come into the industry is virtual reality welders.
Yeah.
And you can learn to weld multiple times faster and of better quality, because as soon as they're using magnets, so they pull the same as a normal welder. You've got the same view as you would if you were welding. The only thing you're missing is the toxic gases. And with that, it actually gives you an x-ray on the spot of what that weld is, tells you the quality, what imperfections, and so you don't have to burn up miles of rod or wire or whatever you're doing. But yeah, just about everything we're doing is being impacted by technology.
Wow. Anything else? All right, so next question. And we'll start with Bridget this time. So what could the communities of practice do better to support existing apprenticeship?
Okay, so I assume you're speaking of current registered apprenticeships.
Yes.
Okay. I think that we need to do a better job of marketing ourselves and promoting ourselves, to push ourselves out of the idea that working in the trades is lesser than going to college and pursuing a college degree. I think that we suffer from a stereotype, and I see that slowly changing. The amount of interest I have nowadays from career counselors and teachers who want their kids to get some apprenticeship information it's astounding. So I think that stereotype is changing, and I do think that we were a little late to the game as far as changing our image in the real world as far as how people view construction workers. But I think that late to the game is better than never, and I do see it changing. So I think that that's probably one of the biggest things that we could do better is better marketing, better advertising, sending folks out to communities that those communities can relate to, that look like them and maybe have had similar life experiences to them. I think that's really important. I think that that's probably the biggest thing we have at task right now.
So one of the things that we can do, we heard that a lot of the younger generation right now, they want to go work for Microsoft, Google, somewhere because they have the flexibility. They want to have the ping pong table, right, during their break. Well, we can't do that in their industry, right? But can we adapt, maybe be a little more flexible if they need some time to do something else during their work schedule? Can we do different work shifts? Can we have, times where we can suspend them and they can continue their program as they are doing other stuff? Because that's what this generation that we're going to be seeing graduate in the next couple of years, they're scared of commitments. They want to be flexible, and it doesn't work for our industry. So either we continue what we're doing and we're not going to go nowhere, or we adapt to them. We're always trying to make them adapt to us. We got to think outside, and I really don't know the answer. I can't tell you what the answer will be, but we got to think about those things. We need to adapt to them. There's a lot more of them graduating, and we need them than us. So I'm not sure what the answer is. We got to start focusing on those things, make committees to figure out what we're going to do.
On that line, we had some older guys at the places that I have recently worked in. They used to use the phrase all the time, like it was okay, that we have to find the applicants that are a good fit. And
Right.
we started to get them to stop saying that. They were so used to it and thought it was just right. But what you're saying is, it isn't like a square hole and we're trying to, we're movable. We're real people. We have a need and they have a need, and let's get the work done.
I sat on a industry panel, and it was me, it was someone from the medical field, someone from the gaming field, and it was young people, and they got to ask about our industries, and the questions they were asking were like, can you bring your dog to work? Can you, what do your break rooms look like? Because you think about Google and Intel and all these places where they have like massages available at work, and they have, and of all the people, it was the gaming gal who said we have 3 different types of cereal in our break room, and that's the things that they're really getting excited about, and so just having to shake yourself. We need to attract applicants, not tell them that, hey, if you want in, you need to fit into our tight box.
Even the views, they're showing you the view of what their break room is, and there's a ping pong table.
Yeah.
Well, if they showed that ping pong table with the ball just sitting there, well, imagine if we showed the view from the top of the building that you're wiring or roofing or something, or we're just not good at advertising.
No,
Not
at all.
I think that this question is really connected to the first question, and really talking about outreach and retention, and flexibility is key, and also identifying what our organization's needs and values are, and how do we help and align those with the needs and values of the community, and then making a commitment, saying, hey, we're not going to say that anymore. These are the things that we're doing. These are our goals, and this is what we're going to do to achieve them. That is really crucial, because that gets everyone on the same page, and it starts breaking away some of those ideologies, right? And some of that way of thinking. And so I also think about, I just stress the importance of how to really look at our organizations, our admissions process, all of our outreach and retention, all of our components, and really look at systemically, is this working? Where do we have to make modifications to help and increase our opportunities to reach out to our potential apprentices, and how are we doing that? Social media, utilizing youth is really important. I think that that's somewhere that we have to look at, and focusing on families and parents. And I know you talked about changing some of those ideas of what it means to be an apprentice and a carpenter or a tradesperson. The other thing that I think about is how are we thinking about what's the data telling us, right? One of the things that have come up a lot here is that we're concerned with labor shortages, and we know that. And we know that during the recession, there was a significant amount of people who left the trades and aren't coming back. Well, a recession potentially is just around the corner, right? There's already conversations about that. So how are we actively starting to flex our organization to be able to thrive in a struggling and a challenging workforce or labor force demand?
Anything to add to that? Okay. So,
I have a question. So you talked about recruiting young families and, parents. Combined with flexibility, what are your programs doing to be more attractive to single parents or someone with a young family? Because an apprenticeship is a huge commitment as far as time and hours, and so are you providing any help with daycare or anything like that?
Yeah, there's a pre-apprenticeship daycare initiative that's been started in my region to, at least at this point, piloting it with pre-apprentices to see if providing somebody with childcare so that they can jump into a potentially scary new career that they may or may not succeed in, to see if that improves their chances of success. And then if that is successful, then looking at making it more accessible for daycare, because we all know that construction hours are very early. And it's really difficult for folks to find daycare that starts that early, and you don't want to just send your kid to anybody just because they're open in the wee hours of the morning, right? You want to trust who you're leaving your children with. So there's been a lot of talk and discussion and a little bit of work and movement towards being able to come up with daycare funding or childcare funding for folks. Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's long coming. It's not just single women. There's a lot of single dads out there too that are struggling because they can't take care of their kids during the day.
Yeah. And we're working with our community organization partnerships that we have. I think of ANEW. ANEW has been someone that's really worked closely with us to ensure and help support apprentices coming in or families. So it's not just the apprentice, but the family as a whole and how to help them. I know that I have actually a student an apprentice that just came in and has came in without having a lot of family support, but had a child, and they have been working really closely with him to help and ensure that he's getting some opportunities and resources that are needed for him.
Can I just ask one question around this? The point you just addressed here. One of the things that I know that I would like to see more out in this community is recruitment and outreach events at some of our domestic violence shelters and family shelters, because I've identified a number of different adults with children that would be great candidates for some of these pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeship training programs. But of course, some of the barriers that I've seen are around having that stable housing to be able to get through the training initially, and also vehicles. So I've looked at a couple of different options here, like some of the partnerships we used to have around Wheels to Work programs that would give young parents low-interest car loans to be able to get the vehicle they need to get to training, and also talking to the city around earmarking specific short-term housing subsidies, just even to get through pre-apprenticeship training, and how much that would actually save in the long run for the city and state.
Yeah. I think those are critical and need to be explored further. There's so many logistics around it that it's almost going to need, a dedicated task force to look at those issues. We kind of kicked around the idea of, well, why don't all the pre-apprenticeships in our region go in on a building and have housing, temporary housing, like dorm rooms, and then training rooms that the pre-apprenticeship programs, they all suffer from lack of training space. Then they could, schedule the use of those classrooms. So it's really important for apprenticeship programs to support our pre-apprenticeship partners and to make sure that if they're needing this kind of funding, that they're able to secure it. writing them letters of support and supporting them in those endeavors.
I think also the communication with the contractors is really important too. You know, the majority of the time, our apprentices are out in the field, and they are working with those contractors, and if we have that communication, hey, how's this person doing? What are the needs? We could work together and wrap around the support that's needed to help that person succeed as well.
Okay, so we're on our final, we made it to all the questions that we outlined for this workshop. So our last question of the day, Louis, do you want to kick us off? What do you want people to better understand about registered apprenticeship?
I want to keep that one short, to understand that we're not the alternatives to a 4-year. If we can change the way we think onto an apprenticeship program, it will change everything.
I second that.
And I third that as well. I mean, how many people in the room are from a registered apprenticeship program? Okay, so the majority of the room gets it. But for the folks that aren't affiliated with the registered apprenticeship, just, yeah, exactly what Louise said. And oftentimes it is college. You are getting college credit and can graduate with a degree as well.
So what Roxana said earlier, and if you guys, probably most of you guys said from the apprenticeship program, right? So at Renton College and also Spokane Community College, if you guys run a program that has at least 6,000 hours and 480 hours RSI, anybody of your apprentices could get, once they become journeymen, they can get an associate's multi-trade occupational degree with a couple classes according to what trade they graduated from. So, and then there are some colleges that are making that become a transferable degree, because if I understand right now, Fort Spokane at least is not a transferable associate's degree. So then people say, well, what is that good for if it's not transferable? Well, yeah, well, you can hang it up in your wall and that's it, right? So you got to make it transferable. So there's some colleges that are actually having the conversation with some universities, so it can be something you can take on to your continuing education. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, also that the opportunities are endless going through our apprenticeship programs. Carpenter is just one job you can have. You can be a business agent, you could be a contractor, you could be an owner of your own company, you can be a project manager. It just opens up so many more doors. You can be a labor compliance coordinator, you can work for the city. I mean, it's just endless how many opportunities you have going through an apprenticeship trades program.
I had a quick question. So Spokane, do they do 4-year degrees?
No, they're working with Eastern Washington University, so they can accept that. And it's in the talks. You can probably get more information with Kenna May. She happens to be here next door right now. She's working on that right now currently with Eastern Washington.
So no, South Seattle, they've established some, I think 3 or 4 4-year degrees that you can take the occupational, and that leads into the bachelor's degree. So
Great. Yeah, we need to do that so people say, okay, there's some value to it.
I just had one other question, if I may.
Do we know if anybody from our graduates have used that option in the labor's trade? I can probably count 12. So it's something we don't announce.
And so we have to
We need
promote
to
it,
count
better
it with
promote it.
advertising.
Yes, we need to.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the associate's degree?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Boeing, Portland. I'm a coordinator there. And we have 3 apprenticeships, a mechanic, electrician, and machinist. And each one of those has a path. And like you said, it's only, in some cases, 3 or 4 classes, and they get an associate's degree. And I just actually got mine right before I took this coordinator job while I was still in the union. So
we're working on getting a bachelor's degree too. We're working with different colleges down there right now.
Nice, great. We just need to start mentioning that to our participants, so when they graduate, they don't forget that they can actually continue their education. They don't necessarily have to leave the trades, but they can get those degrees.
We're planning on having somebody from the community college we're affiliated with at our graduation ceremonies, so that when you walk across the stage to get your trade graduation certificate, you also get your associate's degree at the same time. And so I think that, and we've just been really promoting and advertising it a lot more. This is important to a lot of people.
And something to remember when we're talking about bachelor's degree, because 10 years ago I worked in higher ed, is that if someone gets a bachelor's degree, they may not be eligible for certain types of federal financial aid. So grants, if they decide to post back at some point, so if they do decide to change their careers, they will not be able to have a Pell Grant and those types of pieces. So it's a great idea if they want to stay in that trade forever, but if they do return, they have to take only loans if they're wanting to change it. So that's something to keep in mind. Associates, that doesn't apply, but yeah.
I just want to touch on what Roxanne said about there's so much more to apprenticeship than just completing it and having that occupation under your belt. When I go out and talk about it, it's a springboard. And to me, there's 3 components about apprenticeship that make a person so much more than just a college graduate. You have that on-the-job, one-on-one mentoring where you learn the secrets of the trade that you cannot learn in the classroom. You have that education, 144-hour minimum a year classroom time, and then depending on what occupation you choose, you work with several different employers, sometimes within the same day, the same week, the same year, same month, same year, you've rotated so many times. So just those 3 things together have just made this person such a well-rounded figure that, like she said, you can do anything within the trade or beyond the trade. And so I think that we can't, people always say, well, what's the benefit? Well, you tell me a list of the disadvantages, because I've got a huge list of benefits. And so I just keep that in mind that there's so much more than just getting an occupation in a job that you love.
Ron, you had another question?
Yeah, so on the retention side, Roxanne, you spoke on sometimes, especially females being out in the work industry, it can be difficult because of just the atmosphere and whatnot. And I know over the past few years, we've heard of instances where females, it hasn't been good. And if I'm correct, you guys work with multiple employers? Sure. Do you guys, or do the companies you have any classes or trainings that they do that go over, just the way it should be, not the PC stuff, it's just, this is really how you should act, this is how, your workplace needs to be. Are you guys active in any of that kind of training with your employers?
With our apprentices. On the apprentice level, the employers, it's a little bit harder not to crack because that's time that they have to pay their employee to sit in this training. But I think a lot of them recently with the climate have been realizing that that's a worthy investment.
I think about PNCI, and you guys can speak a little bit about it, but one of the things that they've incorporated into their work is the positive job site, work
PJC,
culture.
the positive job site culture.
Where they're actually working with the companies, with the contractors and the staff and the leadership. We also have leadership training courses that are held throughout our different training centers that also touch on some of those issues. We have Dale Dvorak goes around and trains as well. Those conversations are definitely happening, and as we continue to diversify more and more, we have to ensure that we are providing a safe environment for our workers. That is such a huge, important aspect of what we do, right? Is keeping people safe, not just from getting hurt from a piece of machinery, but actually physically, emotionally, and mentally being safe as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
The positive job site culture. It's become universal, especially in the construction trades, that a lot of folks get in and it's rough, very rough, and it doesn't need to be that way. Right. I hear this a lot about the millennials, and I am a millennial. So with the new generation, if you come in and you're talked down on, you're yelled at, you're not going to stick around. I think that's with everybody. Yeah. It's just a level of mutual respect we should all have for each other, and it's sad that we do have to get out there and teach that to each and every person on the job, what the true meaning of equity is. Not just everybody gets a piece, but everybody comes up to the same level. But these things, and implicit bias, making sure that that's in there, and we all understand that those biases do exist, but how to, now that you have those tools, treat one another better on the job site for the greater good, the betterment of your company and your job, making a living for years to come. But, down in Multnomah County, the Multnomah County Courthouse is the first project on the West Coast that's done this, but they actually, through Oregon Tradeswomen, brought in Green Dot. Green Dot is a national training that has been put into most colleges, most universities throughout the nation, and that has, slowed down the amount of sexual assault, the amount of harassment and hazing and things of that nature. The U.S. military brought it into all 5 branches. Now, we're looking at a model to bring this into the construction industry and make sure that we are all thinking on the Green Dot level. And, just briefly on Green Dot, if you're not familiar with it, definitely look into it. But, the way I attended to train the trainer, and the way that it works is we're surrounded by red dots. Those are power-based aggressions that we put out towards one another. Well, every time we see one of those, it's our job as a bystander to replace that red dot with a green dot, something positive, something that you're going to get in and defuse those situations or address them and get the right people to get in there. But we've got an in-house, but I think that's the next step, that we have a universal system that we all learn how to treat each other. And Green Dot's a good vessel. I don't know if it's the perfect one for construction, but we've got to do something to where it's not just each trade taking this on. We do it as a team.
There's a program called Be That One Guy, too. And it has posters and things that you put around your work site to be that one guy that stops somebody and that speaks up and does the right thing. So that's another program you can look into.
So on that positive note, our workshop here is complete.
Thank you.
I do not want to stand between you and lunch.